Good evening. Welcome to the monthly meeting for the Kent County Public Schools Board of Education. Today is June 14th, 2021, and I'm calling the open session to order. The first item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Costa. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. The next item is moving into closed session. The Kent County Public Schools Board of Education members, this board, Dr. Karen Kchs, the superintendent, Mr. Dan Hushin, supervisor of human resources, and Gail Manley, executive assistant to the superintendent, will move to closed session under general provisions Article 3-305B to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation, removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, as well as any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals. Also to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to those negotiations. Do we have a motion to move into closed session?
I motion that we move into closed session.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Sullivan, and the motion was by Ms. McGee. Ms. Manley? Any comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, we'll move into closed session. Thank you, everyone. Good evening. I would like to call the open session to order. The first item on the agenda in this open session is to report on closed session. So the Kent County Public Schools Board of Education members, this board, Dr. Karen Kchs, the superintendent, Mr. Dan Hushin, supervisor of human resources, and Gail Manley, executive assistant to the superintendent, met in closed session under General Provisions Article 3-305B to discuss the appointment, employment, assignment, promotion, discipline, demotion, compensation removal, resignation, or performance evaluation of appointees, employees, or officials over whom this public body has jurisdiction, as well as any other personnel matter that affects one or more specific individuals, as well as to conduct collective bargaining negotiations or consider matters that relate to those negotiations. This session was for information and discussion purposes only. No action was taken. Personnel actions will be voted upon by this board at the end of the superintendent's report. The next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Jones, would you lead us, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda, it's probably me.
They're very touchy.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of May 10th, 2021, the open session meeting. The administration is recommending the approval of these minutes. Do we have a motion to do so?
I move that we approve the minutes from the May 10th, 2021 open session meeting.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. McGee. Call for any questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the May 15th, 2021 Board and Superintendent Retreat. The administration is recommending approval of these minutes. Do we have a motion to do so?
I move that we approve the minutes from the May 15th, 2021 Board and Superintendent Retreat.
Mr. Johnson has the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. McGee. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, Dr. Kchs?
Okay. Thank you, President Getz, members of the board. I have 7 items that I would like to report on. The first of which are the notes that we took regarding the board and superintendent retreat on May the 15th. We met on that date from about 8 o'clock till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we came up with 4 main goals, and I wanted to report on those goals for the public. The first being implementation of Kerwin, second being the strategic plan and academic achievement goals, improved communication, and climate motivation. Those were the 4 that we settled in on with regard to the retreat. There were a number of other things that we spoke about, but those were the important items that we noted for our goals for moving into FY22. I just want to acknowledge everyone for the great job that happened with graduation. It was our first ever outdoor graduation. We have a number of people that I would like to thank. Bill Ingersoll, the town of Chestertown, for the use of their stage. I would note that the class of 2021 did pay for the use of that stage, but it was definitely, I think we were the ones that actually broke in the brand new stage, so that was really nice, and it was very well served outside. I'd also like to thank the Kent County High School faculty, staff, and administration, our maintenance, our custodians, our bus drivers, Bill Poor, Chris Singleton for the live streaming of the graduation themselves. Wendy Keene purchased water for all of the students. Sheriff's Office, Parks and Rec, and PTSA. All of those individuals contributed to the wonderful graduation that we had outside. Also wanted to congratulate the National Honor Society, the National Junior Honor Society, for their induction ceremonies that all the board members attended. It was very nice. Also the pinning ceremony for our students that were crossing over into getting their CNA, and also recognizing Karen Saunders for being our Teacher of the Year and the introduction ceremony that happened with regard to introducing her along with the other 23 Teachers of the Year. I wanted to announce that DNR is installing a walking path at Galena Elementary School. This was that walking path that we had already approved and had been put on hold because of the construction. And so now they're back on in terms of completing that walking path now that the construction is completed.
You get grant money for that.
They had grant money. That's from the DNR,
Gotcha.
the Department of Natural Resources. And then finally, I'm very excited about announcing, I know that we talked briefly about this, but you're going to hear more about this in the months to come, but this program called Achieving Academic Equity and Excellence for Black Boys. It's the short, the acronym for it is AAEEBB. So where they came up, that's the acronym for the entire program, but we're one of 9 school systems that will be participating in this program. Mr. Graff has already identified an implementation and advisory team. They will be meeting monthly, and he's already got his team assembled. There were 16 recommendations. This is just briefly a copy of the book itself, and I know I shared it with board members. There are 16 total recommendations. The school had to pick 2, and the 2 that they picked are requiring de-escalation and other evidence-based intervention training for all school staff. And the second one is coordinated structured mentoring program, adult males and/or peer mentoring tailored to meet the social emotional learning needs for identified Black boys in grades 9 through 12. So that was pretty exciting. We were able to share that information with the Social Action Committee, and they were also very excited about this program. There are going to be 2 trainings that will happen this summer. One has already occurred. That happened earlier in June. The second training will occur in July, and then there will be a statewide summit in August. So we'll keep you posted in terms of this program, but we're very, very excited about the possibility of this program and our ability to help change the culture of our school with regard to how we achieve excellence with our African-American students. So excited.
How are the mentors chosen?
That is a very long, involved thing. It's not just a matter of identifying mentors and here you go. They've got to go through training. It's a pretty involved, they've got to have their background investigation, all of those things, and we have to write a plan that has to be approved by MSDE with regard to how we move forward with the mentors. So it's not just, kind of a informal mentoring group. It's something that has to go through a lot of hoops and a lot of training. So Mr. Graff is going to be working with the implementation team in order to define what the goals were going to be and how those individuals will be trained. Interestingly enough, Airlie Johnson was saying that because she's been involved with the Chesapeake
Heartland.
Yes, she said that she has a huge database where she believes that she could be very helpful in helping us identify enough mentors that we're going to need. And what may be that we may just target a few grade levels because that's an awful lot of mentors that we would have to provide for every male African-American student that we had at the high school. So I don't know if we can double up. Those are all of the things that they'll have to address as they get more into the program.
Thank you.
Seems like, from what I've heard, it will be a very good, it's been a good initiative from those who have talked at the state level. It's just interesting, the other day I was watching, CNN had just put out a documentary with President Obama, and it was on fatherhood, leadership, and legacy, and the first part was on fatherhood of an initiative they had done in Chicago called BAM. And it was really interesting, and to see us doing something like that, or putting African American males or black males in the forefront of our equity work is really amazing. So
Yep.
I'm
Yes.
excited to see what comes out of it.
Yep, we are too. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Couch. The next item on the agenda is the Standing Ovation Award.
Okay, thank you, President Getz. As you know, in the years past, we have provided a Standing Ovation Award, and in this setting, we have a very special individual that we would like to acknowledge posthumously, and that is Dr. Tom Mchugh. I know that his wife is here, Peg, and we have a brief presentation that Ms. Jacomowitz has videoed because she is not here tonight, but she wanted to share some information about Dr. Mchugh. And also, I have some information that I would like to share, and then we would like to give you an opportunity to come up and say something if you'd like, but certainly no rush about that as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Jacomowitz.
Good evening. My name is Gina Jacomowitz, and I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for Kent County Public Schools. On behalf of the Kent County Fine Arts team, I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much to Peg for sharing the amazing friend, Tom Mchugh. Your husband has been an inspiration to so many of us, and his time with us has been nothing short of a generous gift to all of us. Tom has left quite a legacy, and I'm able to smile and share the story because I only have just the best of memories of everything that Tom has helped made possible within our school district in the area of the fine arts. Tom is someone who has always been selfless and also determined to do whatever it takes to keep the arts alive, both within our schools and within our community. On a personal note, I've known him as a third grade teacher where we were able to bring alive the arts in a summer program way back when. And one of my favorite memories is that of putting on the play Annie, where Tom was more than willing to step up and play the role of Daddy Warbucks, and he actually stole the show that year. It was one of the first productions in Rock Hall where we had both adult artists and student artists work together, and again, it was another example of where it left a tremendous mark on the community in a very positive way, but also inspired so many of those students, and this day, in various ways, they continue to remain involved in the arts. Talked to our team members on the fine arts team, and some of them really just wanted to be sure to share with you, Peggy and Julia and Sally. I hope you're all listening. Julia and Sally are his incredibly talented daughters, which he was so proud of. I couldn't spend time with Tom without hearing about the phenomenal accomplishments of Julia and Sally. So we're a small team. We say small but mighty, and our team we couldn't get over as we started thinking about the many ways that Tom has touched the lives of our students. So let me start off just by sharing quickly, many of you know Keith Wharton, who's worked very closely at the high school level with Tom. And Keith just reminded us of the artists from all over the world that would perform at the mainstay in Rock Hall. And Tom was instrumental in asking many of these artists if they would mind taking some time to connect with our students. So he would arrange it so that our students would get to hear Phil Lassiter at the middle school, and just I think about the jazz musicians that our students had a chance to sit side by side, listen and play, and again be inspired by so many of these artists. So just another example of something we're incredibly grateful for. At the high school level, he also worked with Stephanie Spencer and Noelle Morris on the mural project, which if you haven't had a chance to look at Kent County High, it's a fabulous reminder of the difference art can make in the visual appeal of a building. So check out this this project that's sitting on the side of the high school, made by our own students, and again made possible because of Tom Mchugh and his commitment to us. He's always enthusiastic, no matter what it is. I think the other thing that we all learned is that Tom was a tremendous listener. He would, lend an ear when we talked about the arts, but really tune in to what mattered to our art teachers, each and every one of them. I think about Charlie Ty is our newest member of our fine arts team, and Charles, it was funny because Tom, again, hysterical. We asked him to come in and serve as a mentor for Charlie, and he was like, Gina, look, I don't know any of your alphabet soup, so you're going to have to teach me all of those educational acronyms. I'm like, Tom, you've got this. A mentor, you just need to help him understand what matters most in the classroom, and that never changes. You've got this. So Tom went above and beyond, and as Charles said in a little note that he wrote to us, he just wanted to share that he was not only a wonderful mentor, but he was a collaborator and also a dear friend. Tom would go above and beyond in his mentorship, and I remember him sharing stories of having dinner with Charles and having him not just be part of our school community, but the broader community as he worked on things like Chester Gras and the Galena Dogwood Festival. And I guess one of the things that both Charles and Tom were most proud of was the kazoo band at Rock Hall Elementary School. He just provided such incredible opportunities for our staff and our students. Our elementary team could not say enough, and Amy Boumier, on behalf of the team, wanted me to mention just a few things that will forever have that lasting impact. That would include our partnership with Hagelin Glass that Tom made possible, where fifth grade students actually went in there and had the opportunity to work with these professional artists, and their work is still on display downtown Chestertown. Tom also brought students to the American Visionary Art Museum, and again, if you had an idea, that man could go out and find the funding to make anything possible. He helped us take students to the Art Museum in Easton, and another trip that will last a lifetime is the trip to New York City, where our students had the opportunity to go in and visit museums and experience city life and art in the city like never ever before. He also had this idea that he was all about bringing the local artists and the school artists together. And he started something called Easels and Arts. And actually, Zane Carter's helping to continue this. So our student artists would be given the opportunity to display their artwork in places where our community would visit, such as the bank and the library. And Tom kept soft data on these visits to just talk about the number of lives that our students' artwork were, where they've been able to go out and inspire and touch others. And he actually would have some of the employees at the local bank say to him, it's been great hearing the conversations that were started as a parent and a child would look at some of the artwork done by our students and talk about how it touched their lives. Again, the kazoo band, I think, is one that I mentioned earlier, would go down in history. So you'll have to, if you haven't had a chance, look at some of the recordings of the Rock Hall Kazoo Band and the successes that they had. Lori Armstrong has had a role both in our middle school and our high school as well in the area of theater and drama. And Lori really said, because of the Ben Snow grant funds, it was Tom that made possible for us to do things such as upgrading our microphones to the cordless mics and just supplementing many of our different theater productions across the district. We loved his facilitation. He was not a a professional development facilitator by trade, but again, his listening skills and his genuine love for the craft made him, I think, one of the most effective facilitators and inspirational facilitators we've ever had. He could talk about curriculum, although he would tell you himself that wasn't his favorite thing. But if you got him in the middle of a conversation about what it means to be an artist, he would never stop talking. And so he really had each and every one of us go back and think about what is it that drew you to this career, and to remember your inner artist and find every opportunity possible to bring that out. And that alone will be what it takes to change the future. I really could go on, and I want to make sure I say, my life has been changed. I'm so grateful and so blessed for Tom. I will miss him dearly. He's left a legacy, and I will forever be inspired. So I thank you, Peg, Julia, Sally, for the opportunity we've had, and we're going to continue to work hard to continue his legacy. Thank you all so much.
I'd also like to note that there are a few things that were not stated, and one of them was that the Ben Snow grant was also instrumental in helping us upgrade the not only the sound system at Kent County High School, but also in upgrading and creating the new black box theater that we have at the high school as well. And then finally, and this is just a little tidbit, that he also helped us provide student art kits for the elementary students during the pandemic. So here we are trying to figure out a way to make sure that we could continue the artwork for our kids and opportunities for kids to do artwork. And he came up with this fabulous idea about providing art kits for the students so that during virtual learning, they could still have that opportunity. So with that, I would just like to present a couple of things to Peg on behalf of the school system for Tom. First being the Standing Ovation Award just for exceptional contributions to the Kent County Public Schools. So here is a plaque. And then we also have an award that says Standing Ovation Award, Dr. Tom Mchugh, for exceptional fine arts contributions to Kent County Public Schools. So, yes, please.
I didn't prepare a speech.
That's all right. No, you don't have to say anything.
Thank you very much. He would be flattered by this. He would say, you shouldn't have made a fuss. But we are already talking amongst his intimate musicians of ways that we can continue his legacy through, working with the school and bringing some of his music friends into the school.
That'd be wonderful.
Continue some of the work that he's done. So give us some time and let me make some connections, because it's only been a month.
Yes.
And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joe, I just wanted to say something.
Please, go ahead, Dr. Costa.
I just wanted to say I've known Tom for more than 50 years, going back to Vassar College when I was an undergraduate there, and he was a professor. And when my oldest son was terribly ill as a 3-week-old baby in the hospital here in Chestertown, Tom got me and my husband out of the hospital for a few hours at a time to go out on this kind of crab boat he had, and he took our mind off the catastrophe that was happening, and I'll always be very grateful to him for that.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the recognition of our student board member.
Yes. Thank you, President Getz, members of the board. This is our opportunity to recognize Rachel Jones. This is her last board meeting. And so we have a proclamation naming Rachel Jones as 2021 Student Board Member of Kent County. Whereas Rachel Jones has enhanced her knowledge of the governance of the school system by tirelessly serving as student board member during the 2021 school year, and whereas she has given of her own time to serve with the Kent County Public Schools Board of Education, whereas she has represented the students of Kent County Public Schools by providing input and information to our board members and stakeholders, and whereas she has personified integrity through high moral and ethical standards while serving as student board member, now therefore be it resolved that the Kent County Board of Education does hereby officially recognize Rachel Jones for her service and dedication to her position as a student board member for Kent County, Maryland for the school year 2021, passed and approved this 14th day of June 2021. So we have this proclamation to give her and also a certificate of recognition. Yes.
Also, Dr. Couch, Kent News reporter's here with her camera too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Getting the picture with her, Dr. Couch.
There's no microphone down
I did write a little speech kind of thing. President Getz, Dr. Couch, and fellow board members, I want to say thank you for allowing me to serve as the 2020-2021 student member. It has truly been an eye-opening experience. The teachers and staff at KCHS have gone above and beyond for the district and students throughout the whole pandemic. KCH teachers had to teach themselves how to use the new Schoology platform and help others learn. They were flexible, accommodating, and resilient. When students started back in the building, they were creative in the ways they kept both the students and themselves safe. They worked extra long hours and made sure they reached every student in their classes. I am proud to say I will be a Trojan for life because of the dedication of key teachers and administrators throughout my time at KCHS. Sorry, I catch my breath for a second. Thank you to Mr. Buckle. You have always been there for not only myself, but the entire student body of KCHS. Mr. Brown, thank you for what you try to do for our school and showing us a glimpse of the real potential at Kent County High School. You have done amazing things for the students throughout Maryland and Delaware, and I thank you for the leadership and guidance you provided to KCHS. Thank you to some of my amazing teachers, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Nelson, Mrs. Knapp, and the entire 800 wing for your guidance throughout my high school career. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you to Ms. Jen Koldev and Ms. Hannah Kelly for always being there for me when I needed you. And while most kids would hate going to school with their mom every day, I was thankful to have mine with me for almost all of my time at KCHS. I'm so proud to see my friend and at this point family member, Sam Buckle, step up as the 2021-2022 SMOB. I know that he truly cares about the students and how our district is run. And I will always remember that I am Trojan strong, Trojan tough, and a Trojan for life. Thank you.
So we've done it several ways in the past in terms of introducing our new student board member. If they've attended their prior meeting before they actually serve, we introduce them, and Sam happens to be in the audience. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Sam Buckle, who will be the FY22, 21-22 student board member. He will be a 12th grader. He has been in SGA for 3 years, and he has a pretty impressive resume here. He's in the Interact Club, he's National Honor Society, Spanish Honor Society, 3 times varsity cross-country athlete. He's just got a lot of things going on. He also is an Eagle Scout, which I thought was pretty impressive as well. So I'd like to introduce Sam, if you would stand up, and we'd like to welcome you to the board. On a side note, you'll be getting an email from us this week, and there should be a training that should be occurring over the summer, and so you will be invited to attend that training as well, so you can meet other student board members as well. So we look forward to you joining us next month. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the superintendent's FY22 budget.
Okay. All right, so we had a bit of bad news with regard to our budget, and so therefore had to make some adjustments in our budget. We still don't know for sure what will happen at the county level since they had their public hearing. So, but I would say that we need to count on MOE calculation, which is considerably less than what we were initially told by MSDE. Initially, we thought that the MOE increase was going to be $463,999. That would be an increase over this year's allocation into next year. When we received the calculation, which we just received probably about 2.5 weeks ago, it only showed a $6 increase instead of a $463 increase. It actually affected, the MSDE calculations actually affected probably about 5 counties detrimentally. Another one that was affected quite negatively as well. And so as a result, we had to make some changes with regard to the budget because of that. I did appear at the county public hearing for their budget, and I did ask them to, I asked appeal, and for them to appeal and to think about what we needed as a county in terms of building our budget, and I don't know what the findings will be and what will result in that conversation, but I do know that it's on the agenda for this Tuesday for the county commissioners, so we should find out this week whether there will be a change in that. But I think for all intents and purposes, we need to count on just a $6 increase from FY21. The other bit of bad news is we also found out from the state aid funding, we got those numbers last week, and with the state aid numbers, those changed significantly as well. Supplemental instruction funding, which was unrestricted, moved into restricted budgeting. So that means that we have a significant manner in which we can allocate those funds. We can't use it for the general use of the budget. We can only use it for a narrow focus on what we can assign those dollars to. So that means there's another reduction of $423,127, which brings the total amount that we have to reduce our budget by $881,126. So that is the bad news that we have with regard to the budget. Then we had to go back in and make some adjustments in terms of what I came to you this evening and what I'm going to recommend. So let me see if I can, oh. Okay, now. Let me move forward. Okay, so these are the items that we were talking about with regard to the unrestricted dollars. Most of those were Kerwin dollars, and so the supplemental instruction was also Kerwin money, and that was changed from unrestricted to restricted. So we have a very narrow focus, and that is not on this particular spreadsheet because it is restricted. We still receive the concentration of poverty dollars for Garnett and Rock Hall, and those monies are restricted, but they're restricted only to the school themselves. So once they get dispersed to the school has a few requirements that they have to have, but ultimately they can use the money in whatever way they choose to use it as long as it meets their needs assessment
Is that amount just for the upcoming school year, that 497, or does that go through 2023?
No, it's for the one school year. Yeah. The two things that are required with the concentration of poverty dollars is that they hire either a nurse practitioner or a health professional. There's some guidelines in terms of what we have to do, and it also depends upon their needs assessment. And they have to have a community liaison at their school as well. And then whatever monies are left, they can use those monies in whichever way they choose, as long as it fits their needs assessment. This is a supplemental funding that we were talking about, and I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that, Ms. Stewart.
So MSDE, this is the part of the Maryland governor's supplemental funding that is restricted. When they took back the supplemental tutoring and teaching that was initially distributed, this was the adjustment that was made with the updated legislation. So the supplemental funding we're receiving for fiscal year 22, and then involves the school reopening, summer school, trauma and behavioral health, as well as tutoring and transitional supplemental instruction. We do receive the transition supplemental instruction as of now, but this is additional funds under the supplemental restricted awards. School reopening is involving reopening safely back to the schools. Summer school funding that we'll receive, they would like for us to use for summer school. So essentially, this funding for fiscal year 22 will be used for essentially fiscal year 23 for the summer school. And the trauma and behavioral health, they want us to utilize along with summer school to assist with the students with any mental, they're struggling mentally, or any behaviors that they've need to overcome due to COVID. So they kind of want those awards to be used simultaneously. And then we have tutoring funds as well. We do not have a lot of information on the supplemental funding as far as particular uses. We do know about the school reopening, the summer school, and the trauma, because we are receiving fiscal year 21 supplemental funding that they do want us to use for this upcoming summer school. But hopefully we'll receive more information down the road for these funds.
So these are the budget requests that we still left in the budget. The minimum wage increase, which we have to take steps to increase to $15 an hour, refinishing the elementary gym floors, painting the gyms. You'll notice that we took out the furniture, which was a $100,000 allocation. The Kent County Middle School interscholastic sports is still in there. Bus contractor increase, which is per contract, and then the 2% salary increase that's mandated by the state. We left in the Kent Blended Learning Academy, the .5 secretary for transportation, the bus fuel increase, the bus maintenance, that is for maintaining our buses, and food service support supervision, which, as we talked about, is paid for out of the funds for the cafeteria, the food service funding that we get from the federal government. That will pay for that. So that's really not coming out of our operational funding, but that's still left in the budget. We reduced block scheduling down to 2 teachers. We left the trainer in, and that was a total of $395,000. We went back through and did a person-by-person review of all of our positions, to make sure that there weren't any other savings that we could incur as well. So we made some of those adjustments, and you'll see that the salary increase amount has dropped, because what we're recommending is that in order to balance the budget, we will utilize all the available fund balance of $858,964. We're going to eliminate 5 teaching positions through attrition, eliminate the school furniture line item, and then reduce block scheduling to 2 teachers. When we do that, that brings us up to a balanced budget. You'll see in this particular this particular slide, it does a little bit better job in terms of showing everything all on one page with regard to that. Once we do everything that we said that we were going to do and noted in that other previous slide, that will leave us with a surplus of $13,143. That still, we would still have the $500,000 in fund balance that we leave in reserve, so that will still be there. And then you're going to hear a little bit later on where we anticipate we're going to end the year with regard to how much fund balance we expect to have by the end of this school year, and how that will help us fill the gap for all of the fund balance that we're using for FY22. So we'll talk about that. So because I don't want to create such a giant hole that we're not going to be able to fill that hole. So we're looking at what savings we have out of this school year, and then what's going to carry us into FY23. Because this will get us through FY22, but the situation will be is as we go into FY23, we'll have to fill that $800,000 hole again. Now, keep in mind that our funding is based on our student enrollment. So we did lose about 71 students this year. So we're already seeing that a number of those students are starting to matriculate back into the school system. They're re-enrolling. And so we feel confident that we're not going to be at minus 71 students. So that's going to help us with generating some additional income. Kerwin kicks in FY23. There will be an increase from the county revenue side that they will have to also provide to us. There will be an increase from the state side that they will also have to provide to us through funding. So there are things on the horizon that we can see and we can look forward to, but what the bottom line is, we have to base that on student enrollment in terms of what that is going to do ultimately to bump us up even higher than the monies that we know we're going to get. So with that, I'll stop talking so that you all can ask some questions, and then we can certainly go back and talk some more about the budget.
I have a question that isn't necessarily about this particular budget, but I know I was on the board a couple years ago when we adopted our own internal policy that we would keep the $500,000. So my question is, when would we, what circumstances would it be okay for us to go in to get that? Because I mean, if it's in perpetuity, it's not doing us any good at all.
Well, it is, because we use that for our cash flow. We have to have a certain amount of money.
But we replenish, is what you're telling me? If we take some out, we put it back in?
Right.
Okay.
It basically helps us with cash flow. For instance, we don't necessarily always get our Title I money right away, so we have to start paying for all of the teachers and all of those things that we have allocated by the schools' use of their Title I money. We pay for that out of our funds until we get reimbursed from the state level.
Okay.
So that amount of money, and that is very modest, because that is $500,000 is less than 1% of our budget. Yeah.
It's just that I know for a couple of years, well, for probably as long as I've been on the board, we get pushback from county government saying, well, you know, you have that $500,000, why don't you spend it and rely on, know that we're here to be your safety net and trust us. So that's what I...
Right. Well, what I would say is we had not initially proposed to use all of the $858,000. Initially, when we were developing the budget, we had recommended, that's when we thought we were going to get the $400,000 plus from the county. We had not anticipated using all of the $858,000. When I went in to present to the county commissioners and appeal the decision with regard to giving us a $6 increase, what I said was we would be using every bit of that. And I know that one of the commissioners said that they appreciated we were trying to solve the problem internally. But they did say that if we ran into a situation, to certainly come forward and talk to them about it. So, I mean, I'm just repeating what they said, and.
Yeah, my interpretation has been, come talk to them after we've spent every dime we have. Is that your?
Well, I don't want to put words in their mouth.
Okay.
So
I'm not asking you to put words in your mouth,
Yeah.
I'm just asking, what do you think that means?
I think that they expected us to spend every bit of that $858,000.
Okay.
And so that's what we're doing. With regard to the $500,000, I don't think that there is widespread belief amongst the commissioners that we should spend all of that as well.
That's good to know, okay.
Yeah.
I have a question about the teachers for the block schedule. We had originally started at 4.5 teachers, and we whittled down to 2. I'm sure Tracy probably has a better explanation that she can give on that. Are we looking at, because we are now only adding the 2 teachers, are we looking at some bigger class sizes at the high school?
There will be, and I'll speak on behalf of the high school, but there will be some larger class sizes. But I would say it'd be safe to say it'd be 25 to 30 students in a class.
How many?
25 to 30.
Do we have an upper limit that we just don't go beyond?
We don't have an upper limit in any of our classes that really we go beyond, except for kindergarten. Kindergarten and pre-K, we have pretty well firm numbers because of just the expectation and the size of those grade levels. Like, we can have up to 24 in a kindergarten, but of course we have an IA in there. But we don't have a policy that per se says that this is the top end and you cannot ever cross that. I think it's really hard, being a small school system, to come with those hard, fast numbers, because our schools are so small that it's difficult just to say, this is the hard, fast rule, and we don't typically have a lot of fund balance that can cover us in the event we have to add more teachers. That's the other thing. Once we develop this budget, there is not going to be, we're not going to have the resources to add a bunch of other teachers unless we go to the commissioners and say, yeah, we need to add more teachers because we have classes of 40 or something like that, then that's a different scenario.
So the 5 positions that we aren't refilling, are those going to affect class sizes in any of the other schools?
Well, potentially it could, but right now we're still looking at our class sizes and where we're looking at in terms of, we know we're enrolling new students, but what we don't know is what students are leaving. So that is where the rubber will meet the road with regard to what and it's still early on in terms of where we are. The other thing that we're looking at as well, which I don't have an answer for, is we will be getting money through ESSER 3. And there's a potential that we might be able to move some teachers into that grant as well. But I don't have a hard, fast rule on that yet. So if we need the teachers and that's something that we need to have, then potentially there might be a caveat with regard to the grant that says in lieu of layoffs, we can add additional teachers into that grant.
So that grant is covering the what was formerly the 2 literacy coaches and the early childhood?
No, no. We had ESSER 1, we had ESSER 2, and now we're waiting on ESSER 3.
Okay.
It's kind of like, what did they call them, the stimulus funds that we got years and years ago. I think we were just finishing up with the stimulus funds when I was initially hired at Kent County. And that was like stimulus 1, stimulus 2. Well, now this is ESSER 1, ESSER 2, ESSER 3. And that essentially care money or the COVID relief money.
During class sizes are going to go up. We've been very, blessed here in Kent County to have such small class sizes, but I guess you have to do what you have to do to keep the school system afloat. So that's my 2 cents. Coming from a county where you have 35 in a class, I get quite jealous, but I understand.
Dr. Kchs, from a timing standpoint, so tonight, we're looking for, this is an action item. So we vote, however that falls. I know that county commissioners are meeting tomorrow, which I believe they're voting. If anything drastically changes, what do we do from our standpoint, from an approved budget, and then
Right.
how does that process flow?
So, one of 2 recommendations. We can move forward and adopt this budget. We're running out of time, and that's the other thing that the commissioners were talking about as well, that this is the latest that this information has ever come out with regard to MOE and also with the state aid monies. They've never, in the 8 years that I've been here, this is very, very late for us to be getting these 11th hour budget adjustments. The same thing with,
Blame's not the right word, but since it's an unusual circumstance, do you think it's more COVID-related than something else?
I think COVID and Kerwin put
Okay.
together, because remember, this is a new funding formula as well. So I think it was difficult for MSDE in terms of trying to, and the reason why, let me just go back and talk a little bit about why we went from $400,000+ to $6 was because the wealth calculation overall in the state went down. And so because our funding is heavily focused on wealth, then that affected us in a negatively, negatively, and it also affected Talbot negatively, because they're very much a county that gets a lot of their money from wealth calculations as well. So I think it was a matter of Kerwin, it was a matter of COVID in terms of, people were trying to process all of the grants that we have and not having enough people. I think it was just a combination of all of those things. But the difficulty is we have to have a balanced budget by June 30. So here we are, June 14th, we've got 2 weeks. So we've got one of 2 things we can do. We can adopt this recommendation, which balances our budget, and we can certainly, we've got plenty of time to make adjustments, and if we needed to make adjustment, we can do it through an amendment, and we can take those to the county government for approval, or we could wait and we could come back and, make a decision in terms of approving the budget at a later date. I am hesitant to wait any longer, just simply because, now, I just want to make it very clear, we're not impacting the raises, we're not impacting any of the negotiated items that we talked about with regard to all of the bargaining units. All of those are in place. So
And we're not eliminating any existing jobs. I mean, it's through attrition. We
Right,
haven't
right.
fired anybody.
No, we're not, our plan is not to put in place a reduction in force. We would look at positions as they come open and make some decisions whether those are positions we need to hire back. Can we do without? We're also looking with regard to the supplemental funding. A lot of that has to do with tutoring in terms of working with our students. Could we in turn use some of our IAs that are doing, for instance, like the Sound Partners? They're delivering the Sound Partners curriculum and the tutoring with individually one-on-one with our students. Could we put those particular IAs, put that funding into the restricted funds in terms of paying for those salaries? So there's still some things that we need to sort out, but in the meantime, we have to balance our budget. So our thought is just go ahead and do this through attrition, go ahead and balance the budget, and then take a look at it and see what we can do. If we are able to push some of the teaching positions into the ESSER 3, then we will do that as well. By the time the ESSER 3 monies are eliminated, we will already be recipients of the increase funding for Kerwin by the state and by the county. So we'll be able to, it's certainly not a long-term fix, it's a short-term fix, but I think that everybody is, that was negatively impacted by the budget and some of the changes that were occurring are trying to do what they can to just make it through this budget.
Any additional questions?
I will note just one last thing, just because I want to make sure that I publicly acknowledge this as well. As many of you know, we received a grant to replace the track, the track and field surface at Kent County High School, and we received a grant for $250,000 from the legislature. We went and put that out to bid, and it came in about $100,000 more than we had anticipated. Now, the county had agreed to replace the parking lot here at central office, and what I went and I said to them is, if it's a matter of adults versus students, I would much prefer to use the money for our students versus the adults. So I asked them if, since they initially had in their budget to replace the parking lot, what I said was, can we transfer that money for the track for the Kent County High School? And what they ended up doing was they gave us both. They gave us money for the track, and they also gave us money for the parking lot. Now, we're still short $20,000, which we plan to use a grant that we're getting from MABE, which is the Maryland School Boards Association. That grant is used for addressing safety issues, and I don't think that it was a pretty easy argument on our side to note that the track at the high school was unsafe, and so they agreed that that money could be utilized for the track. So we have made up the additional $100,000, and you'll hear later on in the board meeting where we're going to ask you to approve the bid. And so our plan is to replace the track over the summer so that it's ready for the students in the fall. So I wanted to make note about that in terms of the budget as well.
Any additional questions, comments?
I was just going to say, just thank you and your team for your hard work and always finding a way out of no way, but we thank you. I thank you because it is tough when we're up to the clock and trying to get our direction for next year. So thank you and Ms. Stewart and the rest of the team for working hard and diligent.
Okay.
So I recommend that you approve the changes to Superintendent's FY22 budget. With your approval, then that allows us to go ahead and move forward and start issuing the contracts and moving forward with our employees.
Okay, this is an action item. The administration is recommending approval of the superintendent's fiscal year 2022 budget. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the budget as it exists tonight.
Okay, we have a motion by Dr. Costa. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. McGee. Any additional comments, questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is personnel actions.
So each month, in closed session, we discuss the monthly personnel actions, and we take a public vote on that report. The administration seeks approval for the stated personnel actions discussed during closed session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hushin. This is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the stated personnel actions?
I move that we approve the personnel actions.
Dr. Costa has the motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second by Ms. Sullivan. Any further comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
And one abstention. So we have 3 ayes.
I was
Right.
also an abstention as well.
Oops.
Okay. So we have 2 ayes, 2 abstentions, and 1 opposed. So where does that leave us?
Okay,
I
so
mean,
let's,
I can toil if we want to get these names through.
yes.
And so I'll change it to, yeah.
So we have 3 ayes, 1 opposition, and 1 abstention.
Okay.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, and with this, I would like to introduce Assistant Principal at Kent County High School, Mr. Aaron Pretlow. If you'd like to stand up, please. Thank you.
Excellent, welcome. All right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is personnel.
That was for public participation.
I'm sorry, we did that. That was a ring dinger there. Public participation, Ms. Manley, do we have anything on electronically? We do have another session later on after.
No, Mr. Gilchrist.
Mr. Gilchrist?
Asked to come forward.
Would you like to speak at this time? Sure. While you're walking to the podium, just rules for public participation. Speakers should limit their comments to 3 minutes. Comments about the actions or statements of individual staff members are not appropriate for public comments and should be referred to the superintendent of schools or processed through available channels. If submitting written testimony, speakers are requested to provide a copy to the president. Please remember that this is an opportunity for the community to address their comments to the board. It is not an opportunity for dialogue. If you have any questions that need an answer, please contact the superintendent or write a letter to the Board of Education, and a response will be sent back to you. Thank you.
Could you repeat that, Joe?
Yes. I can read it faster if you'd like, but
We didn't recognize you without the beard.
Yeah,
And haircut.
I bathe and shave once in a while, and tonight I did, so. I just wanted to say, for a number of years now, we at the Sassafras Environmental Education Center up at Turner's Creek have facilitated many students from Kent County. And it turned out that we have worked with students or kids from K through 12. And I want to come here today to thank the board and the superintendent for allowing us to have that opportunity to be so blessed with the enthusiasm of the teachers, the parents, and among the most enthusiastic and joyous were those kids. We just finished the spring season with the COVID slacking off, the kids coming out. But I really want the board and the superintendent and all of the administrators to know that we appreciate the fact that you trusted us with these kids for those many years. And it was really a mutual beneficial opportunity for all of us. The other thing I would like to present to the superintendent and the board, the book that inspired the organization which we ran for some, the other thing I wanted to tell you, I'm going to retire. So SEEK will close its doors August 31st. Now, we are going to work with a number of other organizations, so possibly after SEEK remains dormant for a while, we can reopen. But I will retire, and then I want to thank all the organizations from the Department of Natural Resources to USDA, a number of people in the county, and a number of volunteers that helped us through the years. But SEEK will close its doors August 31st after we run through a summer program. I'm not moving to Alaska yet, north of the Brooks Range, to live with the Inuit Indians for a while, maybe. I'm going to ride my horse up there. I tell these kind of stories to the kids. They don't always. Tammy used to believe them all. I know that when she was. Tracy was a little suspect of what I might be saying. Now, Mr. Buckley, he was usually asleep in the back of the room. But no. And I knew he was going to be principal someday. No, he was a good student. This is a book that inspired the idea for this concept, which I read in the mid-2000s and met the author. And I've remained close with Jack Winterston, who lives in D.C., but he gave us 30 books for nothing. Now, I've given a few away, but I have 25 to present to the school for the library, a supplemental classroom. It goes from the last ice age to the present, and it's a geologic, ecologic, and human history of the Chesapeake Bay region. Quite a few interesting little facts in here. So what I'd like, maybe, if I can, because Gail used to be the secretary down there at the high school. She was pretty strict, too. If Gail could take a photograph with me presenting this to the board, I'll put my mask back on.
Wayne, will your educators still be on site?
No,
The two
no.
educators that
Seek
worked
is,
with us?
we're going to close.
They closed.
We're just going to close. I've talked to a number of people for many months, and there's a configuration that can
Absorb
lift
them?
us up.
Okay.
But one of the issues is we operate on grants. So some of the grants have gone away, some potentially will go. Anyway, we're closing. I'll still be around. I'm really not going to ride my horse to Alaska yet. So I'll be around to help out with the program. And we also have, we have a number of acres of vegetables up there that will continue through the fall, which we donate to the food bank or the new program Moneras and a number of other places. But anybody in this room is welcome to come up. As long as you weed a little bit, you can take some groceries home with you. So the Chesapeake and Environmental Biography by Jack Winterston, and I have 25 copies in the box. Should I just leave them there in that seat? Okay.
Thank
So,
you.
Gail?
Oh, good. No, you guys should stay here because he's handing the books to us. To you. Well, but you should still sit here.
No, he's specifically.
Oh, you want me to come
There you
around?
Requesting you.
I'll be a pain in the neck one last time. Are these guys coming up?
You guys want to come up?
Can you stand in the back row?
What, do rabbit ears?
No, I want you to do rabbit ears. Jack has a great sense of humor.
I'm gonna take my mask off.
Thank you.
Get this photo.
Okay.
I know, this thing's good.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. This is,
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. For those that are watching live stream, I just want to, for the second participation, we do have, if you have any comments, if you want to send them in to Ms. Manley, her email address is gmanley, MANLEY, @kent.k12.md.us. If we do have those emails the next go-around, we'll read them in order as they come in. Okay, the next portion of the meeting, item on the agenda is the board discussion. Ms. Jones, did you want to speak again, or are you? You're good. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on this past year. It's been a joy to have you. During COVID, it's been crazy, and I know we had these wild configurations and everything, so just thank you for being strong and just working with us through the whole process. It seems like we're getting back to some sense of normalcy. But just, we'll miss you from being on the board, so thank you so much. Appreciate it. Okay, let's start with Ms. Sullivan.
I wanted to reiterate what Joe said. Thank you, Rachel, for being on. I feel like we barely had a chance to work together, but I appreciate everything that you've done, and I'm a big fan of your speech from graduation, and I know that you're going to go and do great things. So congratulations, and thank you. And I also wanted to mention that outside of the board, Trish and I are collaborating with Sumner Hall historian Bill Leary on an exhibit for the 2021 Legacy Day. And each year, the Bordley History Center in Chestertown displays the Legacy Day exhibit in their front windows and museum space. And this year's exhibit honors African-American athletes and coaches, both male and female, who excelled in team sports in Kent County and elsewhere on the Eastern Shore from the 1930s until today. This includes members of early church community teams, Garnett High School teams, all the way up to current outstanding Kent County high school athletes. So I hope everyone will come and check out the exhibit when it's up in August.
Great. Cool. Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Sullivan. I happen to be the chair.
Yes, I know.
So thank you. And I know Trish, you and Trish have worked super hard on making that. A couple of things, more than a couple, but I'll try to get through what I want to talk. I thought the retreat that we had, again, was very informative. It was great to really get and hear each and everyone's goals and thoughts about how we can improve our school system. And looking forward to our next steps. Kind of echoing Dr. Kchs, the 2 induction ceremonies it was great to see the attendance. It seems like the world is opening back up. Parents were there, staff were there, so it was really good, especially the NJHS. It's good to hear from Mr. Freisen, and it was kind of close to me because I serve as NJHS advisor at my own school, and so it's always good to see what other nuggets of induction ceremonies you can steal and use. I thought the senior awards that were presented were really well done. I enjoyed the video format. I enjoyed how it worked out. It's a shame we couldn't get the fan parade that night because of the weather, but, the weather has other plans, and sometimes we can't change that. I thought graduation was excellent graduation this year. The student speakers, they were on fire. It was amazing. Like I'm blown away. But that is when that shows us that we have great students and we have great teachers and great staff preparing our students for their future. I'm still stuck on the great analogies there. I know Ms. McGee was really, we talked about it, and I think Mr. Mason, our county commissioner, was really happy to see the students walk across and see some of the, being able to have dialogue with him on the stage about what was happening and, trying to boost our school system up is great. Rachel, congratulations on your next steps and congratulations on graduating. We thank you so much for serving as our student board member. It was great to work alongside you. We can't wait to have Sam join our board, and great. I was also a charter member of our Interact Club, so it's always nice to somebody who shares that same commitment to service above self and the 4-way test that Rotarians use. Also, MAPE has been very busy. I don't know if you all have heard. I don't know, it's been out here, but our conference this year is in person in Annapolis, so that was reassuring. And we've done a lot of work on our educational equity program and booklet that we are hoping to present quite soon. Also, I would like to recognize that this month is also Pride Month for our LGBTQIA plus persons, and so we would just keep that in our mind. And then we have lots of Juneteenth opportunities coming up this month as well, this weekend. And lastly, as we know, school ends this week. So again, want to give the shout out to our parents, our students, our teachers, our school administration for making it an interesting year. I was telling my students today that we have made history. There will never be a time like now. And I was explaining to my students how they have lived through something unlike any other right now. That they are part of this contingency who have walked through virtual learning, who have experienced it, who've had to deal with leaving in the middle of the year, coming back, and then leaving again. So it's just this history moment that we've all had a way, and we've managed to get through it by the best we can do. We managed to get through it, and we should be commending each and every individual down to just the pre-K or the infant, that we've made it through and made it a successful year, a year full of challenges, but a year full of learning, academic excellence, and that is all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Dr. Costa?
I don't know how I can add too much to what Mr. Johnson said. I agree. I especially liked it that the middle school is having a junior National Honor Society. I thought that's the right direction to go in, and of course, graduation was wonderful. I've been trying to set up a meeting with the Talbot County Education Foundation. So far, we haven't really found a date that works, and it may be later on in the summer. But I do want to pursue that, and they seem to be a model that we could use. So that's about all I have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Gust. Ms. McGee?
Yeah, graduation was amazing, but I think it was set up by the National Honor Society induction, the spring induction. I was blown away by the accomplishments. Now, granted, it is an honor society, so we're talking about the cream of the crop, but it was a huge class of seniors that were in that honor society, and anybody that disparages our school system, if they haven't been doing their homework, because if they'd been sitting in the audience that night and had seen all that our kids have done and where they're going all over the country, it was amazing. I want to congratulate Rachel because she probably had to hire a U-Haul with all the scholarships she got on senior night. That was really awesome. So remind me, Mount Olive? And what are you going to study?
Ecological and environmental science.
Right, because you were mentioned in somebody's speech about being a future scientist. All righty. But I want to talk about something really serious for a second. It's not going to be a point of discussion at this particular meeting, but it's something that I hope that we can put on our radar. I could not find what I think is probably our crisis plan or policy on our website, and I know it's a organic document that, since I've been on the board, we had to amend after the situation at Washington College a couple of years ago. And Dr. Couch, you know what I'm talking about, right? So there's always a new situation that arrives that you couldn't have imagined. I live literally around the block from Garnett. It's my home school. So twice since February, there have been major drug busts. The second one was May 26th, literally directly across the street from that front door. It started before school started, so they were already in the process of it when our kids were coming and going out of that door. The first one was in February, so not only did we have drug task force, we had the state police gang department there, and they also used a couple of those what's called flashbangs, and the people in our school system thought it was gunshot. It was such a big deal that Ellsworth Tolliver, who is the councilman for that district, that ward, brought it up at the next council meeting because it was traumatic to that neighborhood, because as somebody was escaping, they literally ran through somebody else's house. I went and read the court documents. So that first arrest, which involved, like I said, so units on the scene were the state police, gang enforcement troopers, drug task force, and local police. That first arrest where 3 people were arrested, and it's all heroin, 310 feet from Garnett, okay? The school was not put on lockdown either time, and I understand, because of the nature of my job, police departments can't tell you ahead of time, because that's the whole point of surprise, to try to get these. But we had kids on the playground. My understanding is the Principal Rose, at her own direction, brought them off the playground. She didn't have any idea what was going on. The second time, like I said, kids were literally walking in the front door. School hadn't started yet, and all this activity was going on across the street. In the afternoon, my understanding is that the way they dismissed, they changed, and that's basically the principal and the administration, probably by the seat of their pants, figuring out what to do. So I think that somebody smarter than me needs to look at that document and add that to an emergency situation we have to be able to be prepared to deal with. So that's my 2 cents, okay? So maybe at a later time, I don't know if that's involving talking to police, But we, and like I said, I understand police have their own things that they have to deal with, but we have to be able to respond instantly the minute we know what's going on. And we did a major rewrite after the college situation, and I think this may be one of those situations where we need to do another major rewrite. One other thing, because of the neighbor of where that school is, some of those kids were worried that it was their family members. So we have to be prepared to guide, to be there to counsel them and just be there for them. So, thanks.
Welcome. I just want to reiterate everything that's pretty much been said. I did not get a chance to welcome Sam, so welcome. There is a seat up here waiting for you, so we're excited that you're going to be joining it soon and hopefully back in some sense of normalcy, but we're going to try our best to get there. I just want to call out again, I know we've talked about graduation. Today at the middle school, also with the promotion ceremonies, the way it was organized, the way it was split, the way it was, everyone was flexible, from the students to the parents to the administration, the teachers. Just my hat's off to the middle school as well. And I know that every school has had to react or do something different on the fly because there was no script, as to how to end the school year or how to do it effectively. And I think that everyone did a pretty amazing job. And there were actually a lot of happy smiles because you could tell that parents were happy and students were thrilled because they were, literally 1 or 2 days away from summer. So, but just a huge thanks to everyone in the system. This has been a year, to Mr. Johnson's point, just absolutely insane. And to try to bounce back and to see where we've come as a school system, I just want to thank the administration, not only here in this building, but also in the schools, because I know that there are some counties that are just talking about what it might look like coming back in the fall for the first time in person. And it's just, I'm just glad that we are where we're at, and certainly it's being noticed, and I think our kids benefit from that. So thank you all for all that we've done. I just ask that folks that are, obviously the next 2 days, to breathe a little bit after that last day of school. Everyone just breathe and kind of just take note, make sure you're healthy and you're able to catch a breath, because it's been a crazy ride. So thank you everyone for that. Okay, the next item on the agenda or section is Education Services. The first item in that section is the recovery plan and summer programs.
And if I could just beg your indulgence just for a second, I did want to be able to respond to Ms. McGee's.
Sure.
I wasn't being critical.
No,
I'm just saying,
no, I know you
I
weren't.
just want our kids to be okay.
No, and I just wanted you to know that we have made contact with
Good.
law enforcement about
Okay.
that. And so that was of concern to us because there was absolutely no communication. And I do believe that our crisis plan does address that, but we have to have communication, and that was
And
the
I
part.
couldn't find the plan, so
Yeah.
that's why I just
So
thought I'd bring it up.
I wanted to let you know that I will send you a copy of our plan.
Okay.
And just let you know that we were as much in dismay as you were with regard to the lack of communication and the whole idea that just picking up the phone and letting us know that that was going to go down, and we could have been a little more prepared. We're only as good as the communication that's provided to us. And so, it's just, it was very concerning on multiple levels.
Yeah,
And I
well-
just wanted to let you know that we are communicating with law enforcement so we can improve what we do moving forward.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so now with regard to the recovery plan. The only thing that we really wanted to talk about with regard to the recovery plan was just share some numbers in terms of our summer enrollment for all of our different programs that we have in place. At this point in time, and the numbers are changing every day, but at this point in time, we have about 8 students that are signed up for the community playgroups, 17 for the Cub Club for the Judy Center at Garnett, 49 for Rock Hall Acceleration Academy, 57 for Galena Acceleration Academy, 43 for Kent County Middle School Acceleration Academy, 11 students so far for Kent County High School CTE experience, and then 93 students for the Kent Enrichment and Exploration Program, which is our KEEP program. So those numbers are increasing, and we hope that we can bump those numbers up even more. The principals have identified the students that we feel need to be in these programs, and they've made comment, or at least contact and comments to the students, and then contact with the parents to make sure that they know that they are identified as students that really need to be attending these programs during the summer.
Is there a limit to the number of students who can be involved?
We say no.
Okay.
But, you know, I think if we were like upwards of 200, then we probably are at a point where we're not going to be able to accommodate.
I just didn't want a kid to be deterred right now if they think, oh, they're only going to take
We
the
still
first
have
50
plenty
and
of
I'm
room.
number 51. Okay.
Yeah, we still have plenty of room, so we're hoping to get more students. And I just wanted to use this opportunity to augment a little bit about what Mr. Johnson was saying about this year in COVID in particular. You know, we were one, if not one of the 2 school systems that brought our kids back. And today at the promotion ceremony at Kent County Middle School, I think it was important that the parents were told that we were the #1 middle school in the state that brought our kids back. We brought them back sooner. We brought them back 4 days a week. And so our kids at the middle school have been in school longer than any other school in the state of Maryland, which I think is pretty awesome. And the same thing with regard to us bringing our kids back at the high school and our kids back at the elementary school. We've been up there in the top 2 to 3. A lot of the school systems across the bridge are still, at this point, we're still only bringing in about 30% of their students. So 70% of their students have still not even walked in the classroom since the beginning of the school year. So I think when you put that into perspective, it helps you see with regard to how it's really hurt our students in the long run. So I don't think anybody can disagree that face-to-face is a good opportunity for our kids to get what they need. So that concludes the reopening plan update.
Great. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Board Policy BCF Board Advisory Committee.
Yes. This is for information only in regard to the information that we talked about during the retreat. This is a recommended revision to Policy BCF, which is the Board Advisory Committee. And so that is just for your information to review. It has been run by legal counsel, so legal counsel has reviewed the policy and had made a couple of changes, but otherwise it meets the requirements for COMAR and from legal.
Any questions? Okay. The next item on the agenda is Procedure 600-12, High School Graduation Requirements.
Good evening, President Getz, board members, Dr. Kchs. I do want to talk a little bit about graduation requirements. This is brought to you for information tonight. It's a procedure change. We are looking to recommend that we increase the graduation credits for the incoming freshmen from 23 to 25. And the reason for that being that students at this point will be able to gain 32 credits a year instead of 28, which we previously had been doing on a year-long schedule. Now, so if you look, I believe you have the procedure in front of you. You can see anywhere in red highlight, especially on that back page, you will see also reflected there are the changes from the Maryland State Department of Education in that health is now going to be a required 1-credit course. Kent County Public Schools is going to actually increase PE from 1/2 a credit to 1 credit, and there will be an additional credit in science or social studies, as well as an additional elective credit. So that's where your 25 credits will come from. Questions about that?
I have a question. Do you know about how often the graduation requirements are updated? Does it
You mean at the
happen
state level or
regularly?
from the King County Public Schools?
From our public schools, from our district?
The last time we did any major update was when we went from block to year-long, and now we're going from year-long back to block. It just happens to coincide with some of the changes at MSDE. So there should be two documents or two screenshots that you received to this, one being named state credit requirements and the other current and recommended credit requirements, which will tell you in red where the changes come from. One of the other changes that I didn't mention, but is going to take place for next school year, is there's actually 3 ways to graduate from a public high school in Maryland. One being meeting the University of Maryland requirements, which includes the foreign language, world language, one being the career and technology education programs, and the third actually being the advanced technology. The state is doing away with what we call the advanced tech, and we had very, very few students over many years even use that as a requirement. Most of our students either do the University of Maryland requirements or CTE. So that's not going to be a real huge issue for King County High School.
Is there some sort of built-in check-in mechanism before, I guess, the 2026 senior year to see if kids are on task with getting all of the credits in?
Yeah, so students, students, every year when they do their scheduling, counselors have what they call a credit sheet. And so every year when they do their schedules, they look at, filling in the boxes in terms of how many credits have they earned, what do they have left, and those are the conversations that should be happening at scheduling time.
And
Now-
this only affects the incoming
Right,
freshman class?
the rising
after, okay.
freshmen.
I just had a question. How long has financial literacy been is it not taught anymore? I see it crossed out here on the policy.
It's not that it's not taught. I mean, it is still an expectation that financial literacy be a part of the high school program. Now, if I go back many years when we had Freshman Academy, there was a financial component taught to every freshman, as well as a personal finance course. The personal finance course still is a part of our curriculum, and it's an elective course.
And the reason why I asked, some of our bigger school districts have made that one of their big things about financial literacy. So, just curious.
So this was for information.
Great. Excellent, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the procedure 600-18, college courses and work experience.
I am actually going to give you a handout. I made some changes to the wording because it was just unclear. So I wanted you to be able to see what that wording will now look like. So this procedure is for college courses, dual enrollment, and work experience. We didn't do any changes with the work experience component, but we did do some changes in the language with the dual enrollment. So our procedure had been written really with a year-long schedule in mind, and we needed to make some tweaks to reflect the block schedule. So basically, what we're saying here is that on a traditional block schedule, which is semesterized, not an AB, but a traditional block schedule, students would have the opportunity to earn high school credit in a content area for dual enrollment courses that align with the high school curriculum. And these courses would be taken in the fall. Any dual enrollment course may be taken in the spring if the graduation requirements had been fulfilled. So basically what I'm saying here is that if a student, let's take a senior, for example, let's say we have a senior that needs a 4th math credit, okay? And they really want to take a dual enrollment class. We're not discouraging them to take a dual enrollment class, but what we're encouraging is that one of two things happen. Either go ahead and take that dual enrollment math class in the fall, hopefully earn that credit, and you've met your graduation requirement. Let's say worst case scenario, you don't meet that, you don't pass that dual enrollment college class, but you still need a 4th math credit. You still have time second semester to take that math credit. Now, on the flip side, let's say that you have a student that says, okay, here it is first semester, I'm going to go ahead and take my 4th math credit in the fall. They pass it, that's great, and they decide in the spring they want to take a dual enrollment class in math. That's fine, they can still do that as well. So basically what we're doing is covering ourselves to make sure that we don't put students in a bad situation in terms of meeting graduation requirements. So that's the change. Go ahead, Nivek, I can see you have a question.
Sorry. Could you just go back, walk me through that one more time? So it says in a traditional block schedule, students have the option to earn high school credit in a content area. Could you just explain what that means, that first sentence?
Right. So we're really talking about graduation requirements. And maybe that's wording that I can clean up, but it's really graduation requirements.
I'm saying, so if a student is taking a dual enrollment course, say at Chesapeake, and it's a math course,
Okay.
and they're able to use that credit to satisfy a graduation requirement,
Yes.
even though the curriculum is different.
No. It says it has to align.
Well, how would you know? I guess my question is, how would you know if it aligns versus? I guess that's where I'm really
Right. Okay, so what we require, if it's a course that we're not familiar with, it's, that the college has to give us their syllabus, then we look back at the career and college readiness standards to make sure that there's an alignment. If there is, we move forward. If there's not, then they can still take it, but it would just be for an elective credit on their transcript.
Ms. Williams? How many students at the high school now are doing dual enrollment courses?
I would say, I don't know the exact number. What I will say is when we look at the numbers for this graduating class, we had 54 dual enrollment courses taken. I'm not sure exactly how many students that is. But my guess would be probably, if I look at back at past trends, we're probably looking at close to 40 students. And that's juniors and seniors over any given year.
Don't you think more students would do it if Chesapeake College weren't so far away? Is there any chance of getting them to offer college classes at our high school?
Right now, they offer a fall and a spring course on campus. And I will say yes, I think with.
Really? Okay.
Which course?
Statistics is always offered. That's one class that is sort of a constant. And then we rotate back and forth. The most common courses we offer is a rotation between communications, sociology, and art, intro to art.
I'm wondering, am I correct, since I've been around for a long time, we used to have that distance learning
Yes.
classroom, right?
Yes.
Outside the gym.
Yes.
Well, and I know there's a regular classroom in there now, but since we've all just gone through a year of virtual learning, would it be possible to do something virtually? That our kids wouldn't have to go there and their instructor wouldn't have to come to Kent County High School?
Chesapeake does offer hybrid courses, and they do offer remote courses. But I'm assuming that they will also have courses on campus next year.
Okay.
But this past year, they didn't, it was
Yeah,
all
I know
remote.
yeah.
And that's not unusual. They've been offering hybrid and virtual courses for a few years.
How eager have our kids been to take advantage of that?
More students take advantage of Chesapeake than they do Washington.
No, I'm talking about the hybrid. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I would say almost as many as are on campus.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, maybe trepidation of the unknown. If we, 2 years ago, had rolled this out, a kid might say, I could never do that. Well, heck, they've all just done it this year, so I don't know if that's something worth exploring. I'm just following up on Dr.
Right.
Costa's question, if distance
Right.
has been a deterrent.
I would say probably historically, yes, it's been a deterrent, which is why the conversation started about getting classes on campus. I would say in the past several years, however, they have been offering hybrid courses, and our students have been taking advantage of those.
Well, that's good to know. Thanks.
I have another question, because I'm still kind of trying to put this in mind. What courses would align that they're being taught at, maybe say Chesapeake, that would align with our curriculum here in the district?
Some of the art courses.
Our courses.
There are, now, if a student wanted to take now, here's an example. If a student wanted to take English, they would have to take English 101 and 102 to equal our 12th grade English. So there's an example. It depends on, if you look at the histories, it depends on, you have to read the syllabus to look at the years covered. Because, for example, our world history would cover from the Middle Ages to World War II. So you have to just kind of pay attention. Same thing with U.S. history. It would cover Reconstruction forward. So it just depends, Navik, on the syllabus, which is why we have to pay attention to that.
Yeah, I understand. So I guess also walk me through, I'm sorry, I have so many
That's okay.
questions. So any student can come to the guidance counselor and say, I would like to take dual. When would be a time when a student would not be allotted to take dual enrollment and just stay?
For Chesapeake, if they're not 16 years old by a certain date, and if they do not have a cumulative GPA of 2.5. So that would be a situation in which we couldn't override that. That's the requirement. For Washington College, they would have to have a cumulative GPA of a 3.5. Most of the time, and typically, they usually offer 2 classes. Now, we have had some students in the past take more than 2 classes, and they've allowed that. But typically, it's 2 and a 3.5 cum.
Didn't you mention at graduation that there's a student in the class that graduated that's going to go with an entire first year
Right.
of credits? And I know that
Yes.
Ryan Santmeyer did that
Yes.
3 years ago and graduated a year ahead of time at Salisbury, so, okay,
37 credits and 27 credits.
okay.
It's a little off the topic, but when will you have the advanced placement grades? We never seem to.
July.
We'll know about them, you'll give a
July.
report? Okay.
Students just finished, in our school, just finished taking their last AP exam on Friday.
Any additional questions? Okay. And then I believe the last policy is the Kent County High School graduation policy?
Yes, so this one is actually policy, which would technically need to be information tonight and come back for approval at a later date. So this is board policy IKFB, basically stating that the Board of Education has set the first Saturday after Memorial Day of each year as the date of graduation exercises for Kent County High School. The board will make the final selection of the graduation speaker each year. We're proposing that we change that to the graduation ceremony would take place on an approved date that falls between the day after Memorial Day and the first Saturday after Memorial Day, with the board having final approval of the date and the speaker. Now, the one thing I've been actually thinking about since I submitted this was, should we put here in the procedure that, that date would need to be brought forward to the board by, let's say, January, February, in order to give parents time to make plans? Because right now, we don't have a timeline in this particular wording.
January, February seems like it'd be too late.
And the calendar committee, I'm not sure we're going to make that, Gail, because that happens before, yeah.
January, February to me seems late to be making that
Is the reason
decision.
you're considering this because we pivoted to a Friday
Yes.
this
Yes,
year?
yeah,
And
yes.
I think it
And
was
the
pretty
fact-
popular.
Yeah, and the fact that, I feel like I'm fairly confident in saying this, but I believe we are one of the only high schools that do not graduate during the week, that
Yeah.
we're on a Saturday.
Well, I'm wondering if one of the reasons that is because we're the only county in the state that has only one high school.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have the captive audience. We don't, our superintendent doesn't have to juggle her
Right.
schedule. Queen Anne's County,
Right.
they've got the 2, and they do them
Mm-hmm.
usually one night after the other, so.
Right. I think we were just wanting to give the school administration and the class an opportunity to have flexibility should they want it. If they want to keep it on a Saturday, by all means, keep it on a Saturday.
Well, who do you think should be the person that makes that decision?
I mean, I think it needs to be a collaboration between the class advisors, and the high school administration.
Well, I mean, that's what I was thinking. It shouldn't come from
Well, I think the recommendation
Needs to
should
come to
come
us.
to the board because
Oh, I
it's
mean,
a
we have
policy.
the final say, but we shouldn't be the
No,
genesis of
no,
that
I think the
recommendation.
recommendation should
Yeah.
come from the school.
No, I think so, too.
But I guess, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on my thinking. My thinking was that because it's policy, it may have to be approval versus in a procedure where it may be just for information. That was my thinking.
Well, when it got changed, if my memory's correct, it was because Tea Party and graduation were on the same day, and people had to make a choice. So when we, the collective we, which none of us did it, changed it, was it a change in policy? I mean, did we make it a policy then, or did we just change an existing one?
Oh, boy.
I think you could probably tell by the date of the policy.
I don't think well, I may have that in front of me, actually.
No, I'm
Yes.
just trying to figure out if we
I know,
can
I'm
play it
just-
back,
yeah.
we can figure out which was what we're
I'm
supposed to
showing
do.
adopted in May 1975, but then I'm only showing the last revised,
Yeah, it was-
which was 2013.
It was,
So I don't know.
yeah, it was revised before that, I think, and I remember the reason was because Tea Party and graduation
I
were the
remember that
same
as well.
day.
I remember that as well. And I do remember in the early 80s, it was on a Friday evening.
Graduation was? Really? What was it way back in 76? Monday. Okay, thanks.
So we just thought this might give, an opportunity for flexibility.
But to your original question, I guess the question still lingers, when do you want to lock in the date? And for me, I would say by the new year, I would feel comfortable. Because wouldn't that have to mean we would have to amend the calendar as well? Because isn't that part of isn't graduation date on the school calendar as well?
I mean, you're going to have to amend it this year because if the date changes this year, yes, there's going to have to be amendment because it's already been published. Now, I will say, historically, graduation committee meetings start in the late fall around December.
I would feel
Well,
comfortable,
if
hopefully.
that gives.
So that's why I say January,
Yeah,
February.
that gives your new senior classes in place. They've got their leadership. I
Right.
mean, we've had a turnover in leadership at the high school, so whoever happens to be in charge at that point probably should have some input too.
Yeah. I just think that the sooner we can make a decision, the better off it's going to be for family that has, relatives coming in from out of state or out of town. So I would say, I know you're saying January, February, but I would say January is probably the drop dead time to make a
And
decision.
that gets in before the calendar's adopted, right?
That would meet the calendar deadline because that's February, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. That was
Information.
informational only. We are now going to move into the administrative services portion of the evening. The first item.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. The first item is the expenditures and revenue report.
Good evening, Dr. Couch, President Getz, members of the board.
Good evening.
We're going to go over let me go to the podium. Tonight, we're going to discuss the monthly revenue and expenditures report, and this is as of May 31st, 2021. As you would see in this first tab, this is all the receipts that we've received up until May 31st. For Fund 1 is $31.1 million. Fund 3, which is our school construction, $3.6 million. And Fund 5, which is food service, which is $768,000, which brings us to a total, and that should not be April 30th, this should be May 31st, please excuse that, $35.5 million. We go over to our current expense fund. To date, we have expended about 93% of our funds there. For our school construction, we've expended about the same 93%. For food service, we've expended about 72% of our funding, and for restricted funds, it's about 41%. As you see in the last tab, it's pretty much an overview. And I'll try to center this. I don't think I can. But it's pretty much an overview of what we have received overall with our funding, with our revenues and our expenditures. And you can see the percentages there as thus. Any questions for that? Okay. That's just for information only.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Okay, the next, any questions? I'm sorry. From any of the board members? No? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the FY21 end-of-year budget projections.
You have, just to let you know, you have it in hard copy as well. Sure.
So I wanted to present it to you, board members, on tonight, pretty much the projections. Please note that these amounts are subject to change, whether increase or decrease. We still have to finalize. We're still in the process of finalizing year end. We still have until 6:30 for this to be done. But for a high level, what we are projecting based on our monthly expenditures, as well as what we have received to date, and anything that we deem that may have been pending between May 31st and June 30th will be reflected. So we're going to start with our current fund, and it is projected that we will have about $900,000 as far as our fund balance. That in, our revenue projections are projected at $28.2 million. Our expenditure projections are $27.3 million. You go over to your next page and you will see, and that is our revenue projections overall. You will see that let's try to look up so they can see. Our projected local revenue. The first column is our year-to-date receipts. That's what we have received to date. Our projected receipts is what is remaining. Our local revenue, that includes what we still are to receive from county and other miscellaneous revenue. Our state revenue, that is the state funding that we are to receive, and we're sure that we're going to get that because that's what the state is required to submit to us. And then our projected federal revenue, and that has to deal with our medical, I think medical aid Part C, if I'm not mistaken. That's our projected. So then you will see where the $28.2 million is coming from. We go over to the expenditures. You'll have that. I'm trying to shorten this. So the overview is based on by category from administration down onto our capital outlay category. And you will see what was budgeted, our encumbrances, what we expended year to date, the total together. But I want to bring your attention to column G. That includes what is encumbered, what is current, and then what is being projected to the end of 6/30. So we're projecting that we'll be about 96% with our budget, but that includes, our monthly bills and any other expenses that we need to take care of to bring us to year end, and that's the $27.3 million. We go over to food service. We do have projections on that. It's about revenue projections, it's a total of $927,000, and then expenditure projections of $938,000. It shows that we'll be in a deficit about $11,000. Please note that with food service, I believe we have about $12,000 in fund balance, so that's not a problem. However, I do believe that we will be in a surplus because the projections that I made for June are pretty kind of low, kind of rather lowball it than highball it. So we still have to make the reimbursement request for the food that for the kids that we've fed for these past couple of weeks. And then we have the summer camps that are going to be starting, so that's going to add on to the reimbursement. So I'm confident that that number is going to change. If you look at the revenue projected and that highlighted column, that is our projections for what what we received to date, and then that 158,000, that includes our May reimbursement request. I think our May reimbursement was like 128 or 138,000. That was pretty much has been our highest request throughout the entire year. So we know that we're going to receive those fundings, and then I budget about 20 to 30,000 in revenue for June. But I do believe that that will change based on the actual students that we will be feeding for this month, because we can't make the request until the end of this month. And then you will see our expenses, and pretty much for food service expenses that I would ask that you would note is the supplies and the materials. If you look at column G, bring your attention to that. That's where most of the projections come from, because we do still have to purchase food to make sure that our students have something to eat, as well as those non-food purchases that are included in that amount as well. So that's our overall projections for our fund balance for the current expense fund and food service. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Stewart?
All right.
No?
I have a question. I'm just curious. I know that at the beginning of the school year, we were using the buses to deliver meals.
Yes.
Are those transportation costs considered then food service costs, or are they still just
No, they
considered-
come out of our transportation budget. So
Okay.
everything that we do, we pretty much, with transportation, we allocate it based on the school bus, so it comes out of, and it's noted in our transportation budget.
Great. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart.
Fine. Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is renaming of KCHS Black Box Theater.
Okay, this is just an information item, just letting you know that it was brought forward by a number of staff members, including some administration, about renaming the KCHS Black Box Theater to the Mchugh Theater. So as per the policy, there needs, if a name has been considered for the black box, there has to be a committee that's assembled and discusses that, and also considers any other names that may come forward, as well as naming. It doesn't necessarily mean that it will come to be reality, but it is something that we have to do with regard to assembling the committee, gathering community input, and then bringing a final recommendation to the board for consideration. So this is just notification that the committee has already been assembled, has a pretty diverse group of individuals that have been very much involved in a number of functions with regard to the fine arts department at the, not only the high school, but the school system in general. So we're going to be hopefully having our first meeting either this week or next week, and we'll keep you posted.
Just for transparency, would you mind publicly naming who's on that committee?
Okay, that means I have to go to a different.
Oh, sorry, I'm just saying because most people won't know that, and it might be important for them in case they want
In
to
your-
suggest somebody, they'd have to know who
That's
to
in
go
my
to.
weekly, but I have to
Want me
get to my
read it off?
email. Sure, you can read it.
Okay, so I have Karen Somerville, Leon Freisen, John Schratweiser, Leslie Raymond, Amy Beaumier, Lori Armstrong, Chris Hemstetter, and Keith Wharton.
And also Sue Matthews.
And Sue Matthews, yes.
Is there a chairperson?
That's what we'll do, and
Okay.
we haven't even met for the first time yet.
Okay.
And everyone has said yes on the committee, so,
Great.
in terms of being able to meet and being very much enthused about the possibilities.
Okay, that was information only. The next item on the agenda is the KCHS Sports Track Surfacing Bid Award.
Good evening, President Getz, members of the board, Dr. Couch. As you heard earlier, Dr. Couch kind of went ahead and laid everything out for you in terms of the track resurfacing bid that we went through in May. Just to kind of preface it and to add on what she said, back in May of 2020, we received a $250,000 grant through the Maryland Capital Grants program. So while we received the award in May 2020, it's been a process of about a year-long worth of other board approvals. So we finally got the final approval back in March, which allowed us then to go ahead and go out to bid for the track. So just to kind of summarize, the base bid is just for the entire track resurfacing component. And then we, in discussions with Mr. Taylor and obviously going and looking at the track conditions and site conditions, we developed 4 alternates as well. The first alternate included renovations to the long and triple jump area. The second one includes the high jump area. The third was the discus area, and the fourth was the pole vault area. So we had our bid, and as Dr. Couch said, it came in higher than what we had been awarded from the state. In conversations with some other companies that did not place a bid, it was, as everybody can expect, mostly due to the pandemic and construction costs and things of that nature. And a lot of companies that would normally put one in basically said, they just don't have the manpower at this point in time to, do another one on top of some of their other ones they already had scheduled for the summer. So unfortunately, the timing of getting the final approval from the state kind of put us behind the 8 ball a little bit in terms of getting it out earlier than we would like to. Obviously, anytime we're putting a bid out, we'd like to get it out in January or February, not in March, April, May. So we have one responsive bidder for a total of $367,440. So that's what we are recommending approval to award Benyon Sports with that contract.
Okay, this is an action item. So as stated, the administration is recommending favorable approval. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Costa. Any additional comments or questions?
We
This
just
was
had
just-
one bidder?
Yep, unfortunately. So, like I said, I had sidebar conversations with some other bidders that typically would be putting, track bids in, and that's the response I got, is that it was simply, they just don't,
Well,
at this juncture for
when
the,
you talked to them, did you get the sense that if they had bid, their bid would be similar to what?
Yes,
Okay.
we had
I know
quotes
lack
done.
of manpower
Sure.
and materials are
Sure,
just
raw materials
crazy
are
right now.
obviously
Also,
skyrocketed.
Benyon is the one who did the Caroline track,
Okay.
too.
Yep, and just to, a little bit more, just for the board's knowledge, back in 2019, we had some quotes gathered, and they were similar to what we ended up receiving on this bid. So,
Okay.
so even from 2019, it was obviously a little bit higher, but it's about what we were expecting, so.
Okay.
Mr. Johnson, did you have a question?
My question was the
Okay.
same as Ms. McGee's.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Not hearing any additional comments, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the 2022 Educational Facilities Master Plan Approval. Excuse me.
Okay, so I didn't want to have to print out a 125-page document for everybody to have to comb through and read every page of, so I'm going to summarize it as best as I can for everybody. So essentially, every year we have to submit our Educational Facilities Master Plan to the state, basically outlining what our plan is for this upcoming year in terms of capital projects and things of that nature, our enrollment trends, our predictions for what is going to happen in the future with our enrollment. So, just to give you an overview, basically for this year we used a conservative approach in terms of our own internal school enrollment projections, obviously because there is still so much uncertainty surrounding what school enrollment is going to look like based on this past year. Obviously, we're all very hopeful that this coming fall things trend back to a normal, figure that we're used to. But in terms of developing our own projections, we couldn't make that assumption at this time without knowing for sure, until the actual numbers start to trickle in the fall with what we're expecting. So, as everybody probably is aware of, Kent County Public Schools has had a significant decline in their enrollment in the last 10 years or so. The forecasts are showing, though, that, there is a stabilization now and it's more of a leveling out as opposed to a steady decline anymore. And the Maryland Department of Planning is also recognizing that trend. So basically, their projections are saying that we will remain anywhere between 1,800 and 1,733 for the coming decade. Now, that does not include pre-K enrollment in their enrollment figures that they give us. So
And I should just note, the reason why they don't include that is because we're not funded for them, typically in the foundation formula.
So, obviously, the largest elephant in the room is still the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent trends that it's going to cause in the upcoming years. So, basically, for Kent County Public Schools, we saw an enrollment decline, obviously, in 2020 and 21 school year. It would be incorrect for us to base any large-scale facility operations decisions based off of that 1 year. So this coming year will be very important in terms of deciding, learning if that was a simple 1 year trend or if that's a trend that may continue. So until we have that data and those figures, we are not in a position at this point in time to make any large decisions in terms of our operations of our facilities. We are still in basically the pattern that we have been in the past few years, where we are going to continue to maintain our facilities as they currently are, and continue to upgrade as much as we possibly can at this point in time. So in terms of our facilities themselves, thanks to the 6-year strategic facilities plan back in 2018, we've now completed 7 school construction projects, and we've got 1 in the very final stages. So we should have 8 school construction projects completed by the end of next month, hopefully. So up next in terms of the capital projects will be the Kent County High School roof beginning next summer. It's going to be probably a 2-year construction project due to the sheer size of it, and obviously, we don't want a ton of construction going on that roof while kids are in school. So it's going to be a 2-summer project essentially. So that will be submitted to the state in the fall for planning and funding approval. So, like I said, barring any unforeseen circumstances from the state, we believe that we will get that funding to go ahead and begin that project next summer. So, and then outside of that, once that project is finally completed, that will be 4 of our 5 schools will have brand new roofing systems within the last 5-6 years or so, leaving the middle school as the final component of that that has not received a new roof yet. And that is a decision that we'll have to make here down the road in terms of how we want to go forward with that facility, in terms of our decision making, if we want to continue the operation of that facility or if we need to explore other avenues for a new facility possibly. So one other thing that we have to keep in mind, obviously, as we just saw with the track bid, is that when we put out the roof for next summer, we have to be cognizant that construction costs are probably going to be higher than we're used to seeing due to simply the raw material prices skyrocketing. So that's just something else, obviously, that we'll have to keep in mind when the time comes for that bid to take place. And as we're reviewing it, and taking it to the county and state for their final approvals and everything, is that, the cost of it for this coming summer is probably not going to be the cost that it would have been a year ago or a year and a half ago. So that's, another unfortunate circumstance of the pandemic and everything. So, but if anybody has any questions in terms of future use of the facilities or anything, if you ever have time to actually, read through it, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and we'll answer any that you have.
That's great. Any questions regarding the 125-page document?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to commend Mr. Kirby for doing an excellent job in putting together the EFMP, and it closely mirrors, as he said, our strategic plan, our facility strategic plan. It's been really great to have that document in place because it has guided our work, and we know exactly the track was on there as well. So we're just, plugging along, just trying to make sure that we complete all the projects as noted in that plan.
So the expectation is Galena will be finished next month?
Yes.
Yep.
And if it's not next month, it will be finished before the doors open in
Yes.
August?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
They're at the final stages in terms of the HVAC and getting that restarted and signed off. It was, I'll tell you what, spending the money to hire a commissioning agent was money well spent, because holding the contractor's feet to the fire to make sure that everything is in place has been really a godsend for us.
Yep, and that's obviously something that we'll take into consideration
Yep.
for the upcoming roof project for the high school, too.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. This is an action item. The administration is recommending approval by the Board of Education for this FY21 Educational Facilities Master Plan. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a motion by Dr. Costa. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Ms. McGee. Any additional comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Kerwin Implementation Coordinator.
Okay, so you have before you a very brief memo. I was reading the Kerwin bill, which is, the first bill is probably 250 pages, and Kerwin 2 is probably 50 pages. In the text of the Kerwin bill, there's this 2-sentence statement that says, for each of the fiscal years 2021 through 2026, the governing body of a county and the local school system shall appoint a single implementation coordinator responsible for the implementation of the blueprint for Maryland's future by all government units operating in the county. And essentially, the next statement says it has to be jointly appointed by the Board of Education and the county commissioners for the Kerwin Implementation Coordinator. In just about every county, it's an existing employee. And because really year one, it's just a matter of coordinating where the funding is going to come from, who's going to be responsible for that. And I feel like that is something that I should be able to oversee in terms of, in working jointly with Ms. Stewart, instead of piling something else on her plate. That should be something that I can be able to do and coordinate. Of course, it has to be jointly approved by the commissioners, and I'm thinking that that should be something that the commissioners and I should be able to communicate effectively. Somebody that they are used to speaking with in terms of the school budget. So I felt like it was a logical choice. We're small, and many of us have multiple hats that we have to wear. I think moving forward after this year, we may have to reconsider, because everything starts to ramp up with regard to all of the other requirements, and many of the counties are looking at hiring somebody.
I was going to ask you, is there funding that needs to be assigned to this, or not this year?
Not this year. I can't see, especially with the budget that we have the funding to go ahead and hire somebody new.
Well, if it's a position that requires approval from both, shouldn't the cost be shared?
In all of the school systems, I think that this is one of the things that the county was really concerned about. They thought that they were, not just our county, all counties in general, because this was a comment that and a discussion that was had by MACO in terms of who pays for this, and I think the counties were worried that they were going to have to be responsible for paying for this position. And in every school system, it has been a school system employee.
Well, that makes sense.
Because we are the majority.
Well, that makes sense that they shouldn't have to pick up the tab then, but I'm just thinking, next year, it sounds like a position might have to be created.
Right.
And you can't expect whoever it is to do it for free.
Right. No.
Okay.
It would certainly have to be a new hire if that's the way we go. And I think we'll know more as we start folding unfolding all of the requirements that we're going to have moving forward. So I don't have all the details. I mean, in looking through and putting together a spreadsheet to see all of the things that have to be accomplished this year, it's pretty light. So I think it's more about communication in terms of what it's going to do with the funding, how we're going to move forward with implementing the new funding formula, MOE, all of those things. But I'll tell you, when it really starts getting pretty heavy is in FY23, when we start looking at the career ladder and all of the other implementations for early childhood, for special education. So there are going to be a number of requirements that are going to hit us in FY23 and 24.
I hate to use this word because it's part of the Kerwin full name, but it's the only word I can think of. Do you think there'll be a blueprint for counties to follow in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, to make, you know.
Yeah, there's
Which will probably be better than what we all just went through this past year when 24 jurisdictions were thrown out on their own and told to figure it out. So.
Yeah. Well, there's a statewide work group that is being assembled with board members through MABE, also through a lot of the other organizations, through PASAM, which is the Superintendent's Association, and all of the Kerwin implementation coordinators are also going to be part of that, and we're all going to be working together to make sure that we don't drop the ball in terms of requirement. Like this little requirement was just something that we all just caught just in happenstance, really, by just reading through the bill and saying, whoa, what's this? This is a Kerwin implementation coordinator. Where did that come from? And it's just a 2-sentence reference to this particular thing. So if the board approves me as the implementation coordinator, then my plan, and in talking with Ms. Heller, then I would go and have a conversation with the commissioners and see if they jointly agree to that, at least for FY22, and then we can revisit it moving forward.
Okay, this is
Can I ask? No,
Please,
sorry. So my question would be, shouldn't we, why not wait until we have the conversation and then?
Because I'd like to be able to go forward and say that you all are in agreement. We can always certainly come back and modify it if we need to. But I can't see where I can assign this to somebody else within our organization right now. So unless the county is willing to be responsible for it, which I don't think that they're going to, but maybe they will, I think this is a conversation that could be had. But I don't think there will be argument.
Can you tell them as soon as tomorrow?
I have to get on their
I
agenda.
thought, okay, you're not.
I'm not on the
okay.
agenda.
I knew that they were voting for the budget. I don't know why I was thinking you were on the
Yeah.
agenda. Okay.
I figured it would be a good opportunity to talk after the budget and then just get on their agenda at the next council meeting. Commissioners meeting, excuse me.
Okay, the administration is recommending to appoint Dr. Karen Kchs as the Kerwin Implementation Coordinator for FY22, subject to approval by the county commissioners. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. McGee. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second by Dr. Costa. Any additional comments, questions?
I do actually have a question. Do you know, for the other school districts that are having somebody already on staff be this liaison, are they generally the superintendent or somebody in the superintendent's office?
There are some people that report to the superintendent because we're small enough, we're small, so we don't have an office per se with lots of personnel. A lot of them are the legislative liaisons. That, like, for instance, Montgomery County has their own legislative liaison. She's going to be, I think, the Kerwin Implementation Coordinator. In some cases, they're assigning the CFO. In some cases, it's the HR person. So half a dozen, one or the other. I think that I'm not proposing that this is going to be a long-term appointment, but I think for the first year, in terms of just seeing how things shake out, it'll give me a better idea in terms of what we need to do moving forward in FY23.
Okay.
Any additional comments or questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. At this point, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the second public participation. Ms. Manley, do we have anything, any emails? Do we have any folks in the room that would like to speak? Okay. Then the next item on the agenda is the notification of our next meeting. The next meeting of the Board of Education of Kent County will be held on Monday, July 12th, 2021, beginning at 5:30 PM with the open session. Open session will be immediately followed by the board members going into closed session. The open session will resume at 6:30 PM. This meeting will be located here at the Administrative Building in the boardroom, this room, 5608 Boundary Avenue, Rockwall, Maryland, 21661. And the last item on the agenda is the administration is recommending approval to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a motion?
Oh, before you adjourn, do we want to talk about opening up our meetings, or do we still want to limit to 20? So that was the other question that I needed to have with regard to moving forward.
I think we should open it up to vaccinated people.
I say open it back up. Let them come.
I know Chestertown voted last Monday at their council meeting to open it beginning Monday, which is their next meeting.
I know that the county commissioners have opened up their meetings.
Yeah. Millington's open.
Yeah, I think we should open.
So if you're good, then we would take that little blurb out of the, I don't know who's going to be in charge of checking to see who's vaccinated.
Well, I think we should suggest it.
Can we even do that?
Yeah, I mean, only half the people in this county have been vaccinated, so it's a problem.
So.
Not sure legally we can go there, Dr. Costa, but.
That's what I.
Well, I think we should suggest it, that people come are vaccinated.
Okay, the
We can't
last
require-
item on the agenda is to adjourn the meeting. Do we have a motion to do so?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. McGee. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the meeting is adjourned.